That's okay. I
Uh,
once did when I first got signed to RCA Records in the States, and we went to New York.
yeah,
Uh, had to do interviews with the foreign press, so it was like a press conference, and I was sitting with the biggest magazine from Japan, and
yeah.
the whole time the woman was calling me Eric, and I didn't want to correct her, and I didn't want to seem racist that it was, just the pronunciation in her voice,
Yeah.
and she was speaking English far better than I could ever speak Japanese. So I just let it go. And then when the magazine came out, there I was on the cover, Eric.
Rick, thank you so much for joining me today. How are things?
They're fine. They're great. Yeah,
Nice.
it took us a while to get the technological
Yeah.
thing together here, but it's my fault.
And congrats on this book.
Thank you.
The cover is trippy.
I'll hold mine up too. Yeah, Janine Leach in Pittsburgh did the cover, and she's done album covers for me and graphic stuff for years. And
Nice.
it was her idea. Like when I had wanted to do illustrations in the book so that it would feel like a kind of a storybook, um, almost like fairy tales-ish kind of vibe. And so
Yeah.
we were working on things, and then we got about, I don't know, two-thirds of the way through, and then she said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a cover. Do you think ECW would let me do it?" And I went, "Yeah, all right." And we were working on a chapter called Wheelhouse and Woodshed, Woodsheds and Wheelhouses, or something like that. And
Yeah.
uh, and so actually, she had this thing about steampunk, like gears and wheels, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
she did the cover in about a week and sent me the thing, and I went, "This is incredible." Yeah. Now
Yeah.
I got to admit, I had sketched the logo, the central logo with the 10 guitars in a circle. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd done like I'm a bit of a cartoonist myself. Not a graphic artist. I don't know how to run the programs and stuff. Anyways, so I sent her the
Yeah.
sketch. She turned it into something very, very real and very wonderful. And I thought, I'm blessed. I'm lucky.
Yeah. That is, and again, the artist, the illustrator's name is
Janine Leach.
Janine Leach. Well, it's fantastic. I really like that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that. There we go.
Yes. The
That's a
pages are
cool one.
turning into seagulls, and they're flying.
Yeah.
Now, the what we did sometimes was get stock images, and
Yeah.
then I would say, "Hey, can you take the stock image and change it?" And she'd say, "I think I can." And I would say, "Okay, can we make this so that the birds are flying up right up out of the frame?" And she said,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I can do that." So,
Now you're sharing the secret sauce.
well, that's what I do. Secret sauce sharing is that's my gig. I was a teacher for 20 years, so what's going to
That's a
happen? Yes.
that is awesome. With the guitars and the
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
I have to ask you, like, do you have any tattoos like stuff like this or like this?
no, sir. No, I would,
No?
I would, I think of my body as a sort of a temple that I don't want to. I'm not too much of a suck to sit through a tattoo. I once got my ear pierced, and I
Yeah.
hated. I like after it was done. I thought, no, this is an affectation. I think I've got too much of my father's sort of, slightly Puritan Scottish Presbyterian upbringing in me. So it's like, man, I don't do that stuff.
That's hilarious. So Rick, one of the first questions that I thought of when prepping for this is you commissioned a new guitar, the Telecaster. You wrote songs. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. F from this new guitar, new songs, and new book. Did you know all of this at the beginning, or did one lead to another? And if so, like, tell me that story.
Well, it was far more organic than
Okay.
premeditated, and the truth of it is, um, I'm retired. I don't go out on the road and play gigs anymore. I don't necessarily have a record contract. I do have a relationship with ECW Press, and I had done a poetry book with them and a memoir. And, in pottering around in my retirement, I was writing more poetry. I was writing guitar pieces. I was writing songs. I like to have sort of creative freedom, autonomy, all of those kinds of things. And I got a pal, Mike Smitty Smith at MJS Pickups, and
All
he used to
right.
be a luthier and build guitars. And I was talking to him and said, hey, maybe we should design a guitar. We'd already done back there in the rack, there's a custom Tele. I don't know, I have to get my chair out of the way. There's a bunch of Telecasters back there. And there was one in particular that we designed together, and it was a lot of fun. And I went, maybe we should do one where it's kind of like the ultimate, Telecaster for me.
Yeah.
So I was writing pieces, but then as things developed, I was thinking, I think there's a book in this. So I pitched Michael Holmes, my editor at ECW Press, and I said, Michael, he's a guitar player. And so I
Okay.
said, I'm thinking about doing a book that would be like liner notes, like out the yin yang, like just completely the most comprehensive liner. The subtitle is liner notes for a guitar and its music, and that's
Yeah.
essentially that's what it is. It's the most comprehensive liner notes you've ever seen. 192 pages of them, So it all kind of grew, and it took on proportions that if I'd known what I was getting into at the beginning, I might not have scaled it the way that I did. You
There's a
know,
lot of work involved in this.
yeah, it was a lot of work, but work is kind of, for me, that's fun. Like,
Okay.
I think of process as kind of the greatest reward about being alive. I mean, other than, family and, you know, uh, warm toast and tea, yeah, like, sports on TV. There's lots of things about life that are really, really great, Um,
Yeah.
holding my grandkids, let's put that way up on the list, Um, but, writing and playing guitar, like, I don't know if there's much more fun than that for me. I kind of like it.
Yeah. So you're not. I thought the next obvious step would be like touring this book. So you've got like, like Randy Bachman does with his radio show, right? He plays music and he tells stories. Like there's nothing like that.
Well, I do feel like music hasn't really gone through sort of the crucible
Hmm.
until you've played it live. And so I did decide, and I think I said I'll be doing a favor for ECW if I, go out and play some gigs. So I thought, well, I should try one, just
Okay.
try one.
Yeah.
Um, and so one thing led to another, and I booked a show at the Redwood Theater in Toronto for April, and it sold out, and the tickets were not cheap. But I was gonna, do this 10 Telecaster Tales thing and debut it, and they sold out in like 8 hours. So then they said, "Do you want to do a second night?" And I went, "Yeah, okay, in for a penny, in for a pounding. Okay, sure." So, we did 2 nights. Now, then I have a friend who's a podcaster like you,
Yeah.
Brent Jensen, and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing my show. I've done a couple of things where I tape them live in front of an audience in a bar,
Yeah.
in Collingwood. Do you want to try it?" And I went, "Collingwood, that's like a 2-hour drive. Okay, sure, I'll give it a shot." So I did that a couple of weeks ago, and I survived.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you know, I don't know if I'm going to make a habit of this, but it just helps promote the book, and I think it makes it more real for me that I sit here in this studio and I practice every day, like 2, 3 hours,
Wow.
sometimes more, depending on the arthritis in my hands. And I get to a point where I start to feel pretty confident as a performer again.
Yeah.
But I'm 71, and I'm not sure that I would want to take it on the road. You know,
These one-offs are sufficient for you, you
yeah,
feel.
or
Yeah.
and the truth of it is, I'm going to play those couple of gigs, and my wife and I are going to get on a plane and go to Paris for 5 days, and then we're going up to Amsterdam and going on a river cruise down to Switzerland. So I'm going to be
Nice.
gone for the better part of 3 weeks, and then when we come back, I'm going to reassess my life. I'm going to kind of sit back and say, okay, you know. How much more writing do I want to do? What kind of projects do I want to do? Now,
Yeah.
the other thing is, there's a kind of a thing that happens if you put out an album or you put out a book.
Yeah.
Uh, then, if it does well, if it gets accepted on a high level and the sales are good and blah blah blah, then there's kinds of like subtle pressures that come, not just from the say the publisher or the record company or whatever, but also just from the universe itself that's saying, well, geez, you're good at this. Shouldn't you do another? I think you should do another.
You're back in the rat race again. So you're not teaching anymore, Rick?
No, and the way that played out was an interesting thing that I always thought it would be the last thing I would quit. I thought I would stop
Yeah.
touring and, but I would still keep teaching.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to sound like an uh, old fart white male, uh, answering this question. The truth of the matter is that I am, and I was when I was teaching,
Yeah.
and the world of academia was making its shift towards um, DEI kinds of initiatives, and
Yeah.
I wasn't against it. I thought it was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and in truth, my life was getting complicated. I was having stress and anxiety issues,
Oh,
and
wow.
I just, like climbing in the car and driving to the campus and then teaching for a day and then having to drive home in rush hour traffic. And I was going like, man, do I really need this anymore? At the same time, I was doing a lot of touring on weekends. So it was
Okay.
like, weekdays we're going to the college for a couple of days, and then
Yeah.
weekends we're out on the road and we're playing gigs. And the stress and the anxiety was getting to me. So I saw the college as a place where if I just quit, if I get out of the way, it'll make it easier for, somebody else to come in. And the other thing is, I was teaching songwriting and music business and directed studies and lots of
Yeah.
things where my feeling about the music business had changed completely, and the business itself had changed completely. And so I was just kind of going, well, you know, my value as a teacher had been, hey, guy that's been there, done that. This is
Mm.
great. Getting it right from the horse's mouth. And then I went, yeah, this horse is out to pasture now. You know, yeah, so.
Why the Telecaster? You've obviously you've had custom ones made before. What is it about the Telecaster? Maybe you want to show the actual
Yeah,
one.
this one,
That's
this is Babs. And
Babs.
yeah, that well, there's a story behind everything. So my guitars do end up. It's very sexist. My guitars end up getting girls' names usually, not
Yeah.
all the time, but usually. So this one, because it's butterscotch and blackguard.
Yeah.
I had started calling it Butter, and then I was saying Butter like Mike Myers when he played his character Linda Richmond as Butter.
Yeah.
Her voice is like Butter, and so then I was going, that's like Barbara, Barbara's, and then I was going, her nickname is Babs, and so if you think Blackguard and Butterscotch, it's a
Yeah.
kind of an acronym, Babs, and I went, okay, that's what I'm going to call it. Anyways, so here's Babs. It's a Telecaster in all, like the headstock, this whole idea of a maple neck, and this is a chambered swamp ash body, so it's really light. So that was a custom thing that a guy named Garen Jacasian made this for me Lucin guitars in Oakville, Ontario. And so this is all chambered, makes it crazy light. But the big thing about it is this is like a Les Paul. The bridge and the pickups and the scale length of the guitar is actually a Gibson Les Paul kind of.
Okay.
So ergonomically, it's functioning like a Gibson, even though it looks like it's a Fender, and it's got nice ergonomic sculpting. You can see there's a
I
belly
like
cut
it. Yeah.
for my fat belly, and so it essentially I'm getting old and lazy, and I wanted a guitar that would make it easier to play if you're old
Easier,
and lazy.
easy on your back and your hips and your neck.
All of that stuff. Yes. Yeah.
I feel that there's another calling. Someone's going to call you to say, "Hey, can you make guitars for old fat people?" I don't know.
No,
Maybe.
actually, I do have a relationship with a Canadian company out of Montreal, Godin Guitars, and
Okay.
I have a friend there, Fred DeSanto, and he said, "Hey, how about making one so that people could order one, get one like it?" And I went, "Geez, that's a great idea." They couldn't get it together in time enough. They were going through some internal shifting around
Oh,
of things. And I had actually written a chapter that would be in the book that was about the designing of the next, like the guitar is moving to another stage of life, of existence.
yeah.
Uh, so it is going to happen. They are doing me some prototypes now that I'll get a chance
Okay.
to look at. But then, folks will be able to order their very own. And
There you go.
yeah, so it's ongoing. It's still, who knows where it will end.
There you go. You'll never retire, Rick.
Ah, well, no, no, I'm gonna die in harness. This
It's
this old horse is gonna die in
Yeah.
harness.
You'll go on river cruises every quarter maybe, and but you'll come back to design new guitars or write books.
I think, to be honest, I think the creative life is the most fun and rewarding for me, and
Yeah.
it does end up being a conflict in the sense of, marriage and family and those things. Like there's no question that I would definitely want to prioritize my marriage and my family
Yeah, yeah.
above my creative life. But it is right up there, and the thing that's kind of interesting is it used to be my career, and so I used to have to think of it with a certain amount of sort of ambition
Yeah.
and competitiveness. And then you get into the third act of your life, and you're kind of going, yeah, I don't care about that shit anymore. Like I really don't. And I kind of go, just like as long as it's fun, as long
Yeah.
as it's rewarding, it's kind of like, the guy that's building trains in his basement, or, like my wife loves to garden, and we have a beautiful garden, and it takes a lot of time and energy. And I think, well, when I'm in my studio, I'm going, this is like when my wife's working in the garden.
Yeah.
Although she says, you should come and help me in the garden. And I never say to her, you should come to the studio and help.
That's hilarious. Rick, it is always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much. The book by Rik Emmett, 10 Telecaster Tales, liner notes for guitar and its music. The guitar is Babs. The man is Rick. And if you want to, this man's a former teacher, but his writing, I don't know about that.
You
There's
know what we call those? We call those Rick's hieroglyphics. And
hieroglyphics, Rick's
yeah, like
hieroglyphics.
I was almost embarrassed to put them in the book when I told my editor Michael, "Listen, I'm thinking about this, but I'm not sure. I'm a little, I'm shy to do this because they really are a complete dog's breakfast. But this is how I work. This is my process.
Yeah,
I can't write notation in a clean, beautiful way, the way, real musicians do. I do it
yeah.
in my own stupid sort of make up, make believe kind of world. So, that's what my notes look like. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The book is published by our friends at ECW Press. Um, Go get this book for the music lover in your family, for yourself. If you're a fan of Rik Emmett, An
Yeah,
amazing
folks,
book.
if they you can get the book anywhere,
Yeah,
Amazon or your
Indigo.
local indie bookstore, which
Yeah,
I love when people do that because they'll order it in from ECW. But you can also the 10 songs, you can get them at bandcamp.com. There's a Rik Emmett page at bandcamp.com. And also, for the first time in my life, I have a friend named Alan Shoesmith, and he had been a high school music teacher, and I knew him from way back because I used to go and do seminars at his school and clinics and
yeah.
things. Alan is retired, and he really understands the world of streaming because he, as an artist now in
Okay.
his retirement, does a lot of streaming stuff. And he said, Rik, you should do streaming. You should get into streaming. And I went, okay, well, will you help me? And so now this stuff is up, and it's you can stream it on Spotify or whatever streaming service you
There
like.
you
So
go.
like my world keeps expanding, buddy. It's crazy,
We'll have a link to your Bandcamp in the notes.
right?
So people can go there. I've been told that they pay more than these other people, but anywhere you want, anywhere you consume music, check it out. Ten Telecaster Tales, Rik Emmett, the book, the music, the myth, the legend, and Babs.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
man.
thank you, Rick. I really appreciate this, man.
Okay, you're welcome.